4. Hi guys, welcome back to TV Spoilers. Today, I'm going to reveal to you a potential disappearance of Noah that could raise serious concerns. Nick has always been the type to try to appear tougher when cornered, but this time, that toughness isn't a display of resilience. It's begun to transform into a fragile shell concealing a rapidly spreading crack from within. The pain in his leg is no longer just a physical ailment. It's become a throbbing ache of unease, a constant reminder that he no longer controls his body as before, and more frighteningly, he's gradually losing control of his own mind. Each time the pain returns, Nick feels himself being pulled back into the vulnerable state he once thought he had overcome. What makes things dangerous isn't just the persistent pain, but how it's compounded by the obsessive desire to hunt down Matt at all costs. In Nick's mind, Matt was no longer a threat that could be dealt with step by step, but had become a haunting shadow, an invisible yet persistent presence gnawing away at his sanity every day. This obsession made it impossible for Nick to distinguish between genuine fear and the urges of his silently resurfacing addiction. He convinced himself that he only needed a little support to stay afloat, just a dose of painkiller to keep focused, just a short break to return stronger. But the truth was, each time he gave in, he sank deeper into a quagmire he had sworn never to enter again. Nick didn't relapse in a moment of impulsiveness. He slipped in a slower, more terrifying, and far more painful way. At first, it was just prolonged hesitation before the pill, moments when his hand lingered longer than necessary, times when he justified it to himself that it was because of the pain, the pressure. The circumstances, not weakness. Then, gradually, the pain in his leg was no longer the sole reason. What he sought was not just physical relief, but a moment of mental retreat, a blurring of vision, an escape from the pressure gripping him. Each pill was like a false promise that he still held control, that he could stop at any time. But it was this pretense that was most dangerous. It made Nick continue to appear as a fighter, while in reality, he had begun to expose deadly gaps in his defenses. Matt realized this before Nick even admitted it to himself. With the coldness and patience of someone who only acts when victory is certain, Matt didn't rush into a direct attack. He observed. He waited. He let the chaos within Nick grow to the point where it could become a weapon against Nick himself. Matt watched every movement, every habit, every time Nick lost his composure because a lead slipped away, every moment he writhed in pain and tried to hide it. What intrigued Matt wasn't just Nick's pain, but Nick's attempt to deny its severity. A man who still believed he was in control, while in reality had begun to let his guard down, was always the ideal prey. Matt understood he didn't need to create chaos. He just needed to stand close enough to wait for Nick to break down, then step in at the right moment. Noah became the weakness that Matt patiently waited to exploit. It wasn't because Noah was the most vulnerable link in the conventional sense, but because Noah was a part of Nick that he could never truly view with absolute coldness. In other battles, Nick could strategize, endure, and accept temporary losses to prepare for a counterattack, but with Noah, all limits were erased. Nick's love for his son made him strong, but it also made him more susceptible to manipulation than ever before. Matt didn't just want to harm Noah. He wanted to use Noah as a blow to Nick's most fragile core, the part that, with just a touch, could shatter all of Nick's control, all his reason, all his calculations in an instant. Nick moved like a man stretched between two opposing extremes. On one side was the determination to hunt down Matt to the very end, to end the threat looming over his life and his family. On the other was his increasingly evident dependence on drugs, something that terrified him but which he lacked the sanity to break free from. His body began to react in ways he could no longer hide. The pains became more frequent, his moods more erratic, his concentration more erratic. At times, He thought he was still keeping track of the situation, still seeing all the signs of danger. But in reality, gaps in his perception had begun to appear. Moments of distraction, decisions he thought were spontaneous but lacked caution, steps driven more by bodily impulses than rational calculation. In an atmosphere thick with fear, confusion, and pressure, everything is hurtling towards an inevitable tipping point. The Newman family is plunged into a state of alarm. Nick is pushed to his physical and mental limits. Matt has acted, revealing ambitions large enough to threaten the family's future. Noah becomes the focal point of a game where every delay could lead to irreversible consequences. No one is left out. There is no room for the illusion that this is just a provocation that can be easily negotiated. Everything has crossed the boundaries of a normal confrontation. This is a battle where one more mistake could cost Nick his son, control of his life, and the entire legacy his family has always protected at all costs. On our TV Spoilers channel, I always seek content inspiration for each video by compiling short video clips to analyze and offer my personal opinions. This channel specializes in analyzing, theorizing, and discussing plot points in the Young and the Restless series from the perspective of a longtime fan. Through this, viewers can gain deeper, more objectives, and more interesting perspectives. Subscribe to the channel to stay updated on the latest news about the Young and the Restless series.